Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Gay is with us now to talk to us about how important consultation is, what it'll do to your business as far as the success and the loyalty with your clients. I'll share my screen with you, and Gay, you'll just let me know when you want me to go from one
Sure.
slide to the next. So here we go. So over to you, Gay.
So what I'm doing is over the next 3 weeks, including today, is going through the consultation process and really bringing in understanding and how that actually works with with our treatments. And I think it's really important that we I've got all these things flashing up. Frank, you'll have to do the chat thing. I think it's really
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
okay. I think it's really important that we understand what the consultation is. We're going to also cover off in the coming weeks retailing, what goes wrong, how we can actually improve that through consultation, and also putting people onto programs of treatments as well. So it's really quite 30 minutes each session and really quite intense. So Frank, we'll just go to the next slide if we could.
Yeah, and
Just
oops, is that
next.
it? Have I got the
Yeah.
right slide? Yep.
So I want to start by asking you a question. I want you to think about this. How many of you believe that's on here? Maybe we're not all together in a room, but I want you to think about the answer to this, that the treatment part of what we do is the most important part. It's the one that actually gives us the results. So I just want you to think about that for a second. And, we often think that the treatment, what we do in the cubicle, is more important than the consultation. Yeah, for many years, that's what I believed. I believed that my treatment was more important than doing a consultation. Why should I do a consultation? We just go through asking the same old questions over and over and over again. And from there, we have to decide on the treatment that we're actually going to deliver. Most therapists, including myself, believe that is the treatment that changes the skin. And I'm here to challenge you because what I want you to think about is how do we get to that treatment? How do we actually make the decision on what treatment that we're actually going to perform? Because the truth is, it's the consultation that is really the treatment. And I have been calling it a treatment for many, many years now because I came to realize that when we do that consultation, it's the first treatment that actually we do in a clinic. It's the one that's going to bring us the most money. Yet for many years, we actually have been giving it away freely. But it's the one treatment that actually is going to give us or bring us money into our clinics. Yeah, the consultation is where we build trust. It's where that trust is built, and it's where the decisions are made, and where your clients decide on whether they believe you or not. And that's a big thing, where they decide whether they're going to believe you or not. So, when we look at the real problem, if you look at this screen up here, when we look at the real problem, clients don't leave because of the treatments. They leave because of the consultation. And if we think about that consultation, if they weren't given the answers in that consultation, that's why they leave. When we don't have, or the clients leave, the cost of a poor consultation is low rebooking, inconsistent results, and we have these revenue leakages. And most clinics are losing money at that consultation stage. So I think we have to really understand the value of a consultation and its importance. And if we can just go to the next slide.
Yep. Yeah,
Thank you.
sure.
That's okay. So
Absolutely.
I just want to share with you early in my career, like I said to you, I did focus on the treatment. I wanted to be the best at performing those treatments. I wanted to make sure that I gave the client an experience that they absolutely loved. And yes, they did love it. We used devices, we did all sorts of things. But I remember a client coming in one time and asked me about her pigmentation. And I thought about that, and that moment actually changed everything for me because I realized I'd been treating her and she came back and asked about the pigmentation. And I realized that the consultation at that very moment was the treatment because I didn't know anything about her skin. I was just treating what I saw. I looked at her skin and I was just treating that pigmentation. Yeah, to me, I did everything right on paper. I went through the process, asked the questions, did all of that kind of stuff. But she actually came back she was very disheartened because the pigmentation hadn't been cleared, and she was expecting more from me, and I didn't deliver. The reason I didn't deliver is because I didn't understand her skin. I didn't know enough about her skin. And I was never going to fix her until I really, truly understood her skin. So consultations fail, not because therapists don't care. We all do. We all love our clients. We love what we do. They fail because they stay at the surface. Because when someone comes in, one of the big things that we do is look at their skin and we go, oh, I can fix that. That's easy. And we go into treatment mode, but we don't really understand what we're treating. The surface is never the problem. It's what's going on, and that's the power of the consultation. That's why it's so, so important. So I think one of the things that we have to know is the consultation is the most important thing that we're going to do. It determines client trust, which is really important, treatment plan acceptance, retail sales, and long-term retention. It does all of that. And I don't think we've ever really, well, I didn't for a long time, sat down and think about that. So a client's going to make a decision on whether they trust you in that first 7 to 10 minutes. That doesn't give us very long, does it? 7 to 10 minutes to woo someone, win them over, share our magic with them before they decide I'm going to stay here or I'm just going to go through the motion of this appointment and leave and never come back again. And that happens so many times. So I think, we're on to the next slide. Yeah. So I've had clients sit in my consultation chair, and this has happened a lot. And they say to me, this is after I realized how important the consultation is, and I went through that process, and they say to me, no one's ever explained the skin like that to me before. They never really understood why their skin had a problem. And the interesting thing is that when I did this consultation, their skin didn't change. It never changed at all, but their understanding did. And I think that's what's really important. And that's when we make the changes, when they understand what their skin condition is, how they actually have got it, how we can actually treat it. That makes everything's going to change for you and your business. So let me just reframe something for you here. Pigmentation is not the problem. Erythema is not the problem. Acne is not the problem. The symptoms of dysfunction within the skin are actually the problem. And if you don't identify those dysfunctions, you'll never get a long-term client. Our job is to actually make sure that we translate confusion into clarity. So when people come into us, they've been to a lot of other clinics. Maybe it might be their first time, but a lot of them have been to other clinics seeking to get their skin changed, trying to get the answers. And they come in with an attitude. You might not see it, but they've got this attitude. Everyone's tried. How are they going to help me? But I'm going to go there anyway. And they're very confused about what's happened to their skin over the time. We have to actually turn that confusion into clarity by actually really getting them to understand what their skin is all about. So I'm just going to give you an example script here. This is what we could say to a client when they're coming in, and we've actually come up with a solution, is what you're seeing on the surface is pigmentation, but underneath your skin is actually inflamed and your barrier is compromised. So if we treat the pigmentation without correcting that, you'll just keep coming back and we're never going to get anywhere. So that's where we've actually got to create that clarity with our clients. So build trust, understand the real concern, educate the client, position yourself as an expert, and create a clear plan. Make sure that you do position yourself as an expert. Get your head clear. Make sure that before your client comes in, that you actually create, an environment in your own headspace that you can actually fix this consultation. So I actually spoke this morning when I was talking, I actually talked about doing little mantra things and getting my head in the right space before a client comes in. But how we actually do that is actually send them out a pre-consultation form. So when we send out that pre-consultation form, we actually get a little bit of a clear picture on what is actually going on with the person before they actually come in. The thing is that when you send out that form, you don't read it 2 minutes before they come in. You should give yourself a day at least and go through that consultation form so that you're prepped and you're ready for that. If you read it just before they come in, you haven't prepared yourself for that. You're not ready to do that consultation. You're not ready to take someone's skin and change it because you haven't prepped yourself. A consultation cannot be the same. It can't be the same on every single person that comes into your clinic. It has to be different every single time. Everyone's got a different skin condition that's caused by a different reason. We have to understand that. So in that consultation is really getting down to gut health, understanding their breathing habits, understanding their nervous system. All of that we have to identify before we can even start to begin to treat someone's skin. So you have to go through that pre-consultation form, find little gaps that might be causing the condition that they have asked you to fix. If we can go to the next slide, Frank. So before your client will really trust your knowledge, they need to feel safe. And this is something that we need to create in our space, that safe space where we connect with them, and that connection is really important. When we connect with someone, it's not just going sitting down going, hi, how was your day? That's not connection. Connection is actually really having empathy, really understanding how they're feeling at that moment. Because I don't know about you, but I've had so many people come in and over my time, and I've done a consultation on them, and they've burst into tears because I've given them an answer. No one's ever told them that before. No one's ever really understood how they're feeling. Now, I've never had acne. I've been blessed not to have that. But one of my sons did, and I really could understand going through the emotion with him, how he felt having that. So when a client comes in with acne, I feel their pain. I feel how they don't want to look at their skin. I feel how when they touch their skin, it feels sore. I actually have that empathy for them. And I think we have to put ourselves into someone's shoes when we're actually trying to connect and treat their skin to build that trust. The investigation part of it is actually us finding out what has caused that. Now, acne isn't acne. We have so many different causes of acne. There's so many different variations of acne. The same with pigmentation. The same why the skin ages as well. The skin doesn't age because we get old. It can age when we're in our 20s, when we're in our 30s. And there's so many reasons for that. So that investigation part is important. Understanding, have they got a healthy nervous system? Do they suffer anxiety and stress? And my goodness, we know so many people are suffering that these days. That has a huge impact on the skin. Very personal questions. So before you can get into that investigation, you've got to connect. We have to understand, their gut health. Do they go to the bathroom regularly, or does it build up and all those toxins build up? What is their lymphatic system like? What is their immune system like? So also breathing, like breath work is so important. Do they just shallow breathe, or do they do deep breathing throughout a day? So that investigation part to find out what has caused that comes after the connection. Educate. We are educators. We're all educators. We're therapists that are educating people on how to care for their skin. So we have to do that education and make sure that we create something that they understand. Now, when I'm teaching, I use quite, big words and language that are not easy to understand, but I'm teaching therapists how to, what the skin's all about. But when I'm talking to a client, I will simplify it so that they actually understand what I'm talking about. If I go talking about the keratin and melanocyte and all this kind of stuff, they're not even going to understand. So I draw little figures for them, little drawings, and go through that. I use visuals for my clients, how the immune cells work and what the lymphatic system is. and you get quite good at drawing after a while, you think coloring in, it's quite fun. But, like that part of that education is really important. And diagnosing is coming up with a solution. Now, I'm massive on making sure that people have got the right solution to use at home. If I'm going to do a treatment in the clinic and they haven't got the home care to follow through, they're not going to get the results. We can do an amazing treatment, their skin's going to look great for a week, but if we're not following through with their home care, then it's not going to last. So that diagnosis and how actives are going to help the cell, like talking about, vitamin A, vitamin B, peptides. We talk about that, but how is it going to help the cell? How is it going to change the skin? And that part of diagnosis is really important. And then we need to come up with a plan. So we know one treatment isn't going to do it. There's not one size fits all. So we've got to come up with a plan on how we're actually going to get their skin healthy so they love us. And when they look in the mirror, it's going to look up, they're going to love their skin. So that plan is something that is changeable. So if I came up with a plan of doing XYZ treatments over 6 months, 12 months, I've got to be adapting to that. So their skin's going to change. It might regress if they're not doing the right things at home. So I have to adapt my plan. I can't be structured and go, this week we're doing this month we're doing this. You can't work that way. But you come up with a plan that they can see that you actually have got a direction, and you explain to them that they need to be able to change that and adapt to that. So if we can go to the next one, Frank. And this is something that I want to talk about the structure. Maybe I should just go back, Frank, if we can do that. Yeah, I just want to talk about the plan, the structure of the consultation. So when I talk about a plan, it's how we actually construct the consultation together. So this connection part, I know that we have a time allocated to do that, but you allow about 2 minutes for that connection. So when you're looking at your planning out your consultation, you need to go through that part, which can take about 2 minutes. What I mean is, if I've got a client that comes in and they say to me, my biggest concern is aging. That's what I want to fix. My whole consultation is going to be around that. So I'm going to say, okay, let's just chat about that. Let's talk about that. When did you notice that your skin started to age? What have you done to treat it? What has worked? What hasn't worked? Is there, days that it looks great and there's days that it looks worse? So I want to talk about that, that connecting with them, so they know that I'm in the same page with them, talking about their skin condition. So, I'll say things like, tell me what's been happening with your skin. What's bothering you right now? And they're going to come out and go, oh, it's pigmentation or it's scarring or whatever. That is the focus. And that's where you need to connect with them. The investigation part is where we go through the skin history, we go through health factors, we go through the lifestyle, and then we go beyond the surface. So then we talk about things like the digestive system, we talk about hormones, we talk about all those types of things. We have to identify stress. I use this analogy really a lot when I'm teaching, and it's this beautiful tree that we have outside. We look outside and there's this gorgeous tree, and I don't know about you, but I love looking at trees, and it's full and the leaves are fluttering around in the wind. It looks beautiful. But if we can go under the surface of that tree and look at the roots, they're all matted and they're all tangled up. And that's how some people live their lives. They walk around going, oh, life's amazing, life's great, but inside they're killing themselves because they have so much stress and so much angst going on. And that's what's causing the skin to present with pigment or aging or acne, or, it's not healing well. So we get scarring. We get all of those things because of that's just one scenario because of what's going on inside. Diet is a thing too. Like, we've heard so many times, we are what we eat. We are to a point, but we've got to understand, what is their diet? If they're vegans, where they get their protein from? If they're vegetarians, where they get the protein from. So we've got to understand all of those things. And then medications, that's all in that investigation part. Education is really important. I talked about that already. And then the last part is diagnosing. So based on everything that you've told me and what I can see, your skin is experienced, da, 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 da. These are all scripts that we can actually use. And I think on the last week, I'm going to give you a lot of scripts that you can use for people that go, I'm not going to do it today, but I'll do it next time I come in or whatever. So I've got scripts that we can actually help with that. And then your plan is their home care, looking at their timeline and their treatments. So nothing is a one treatment fix. Nothing's like that. We don't have a wand, we're not fairy godmothers, although people think that we are, we're not. So you're going to have to work in stages to rebuild the skin. So that's what we've got to really get that planning across on how we actually do that. So now we can go to the next one, Frank, if that's all right with you. So this is an exercise. So if you can just take a photo of this with your cameras, if you've got your cameras on hand. And I want you to do this. I'd like you to do this before our next session because it's a really good exercise. And you need to be really honest with it. So it's just questions that you ask. Do I lead my consultations or follow the client? So that's building trust. On a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate yourself? Asking deeper questions. Do I educate or do I simply recommend? There's a big difference between recommending and educating. So I want you to score yourself on that. Do you explain skin conditions? Do you explain what pigmentation is? Do you really understand how that pigment is being distributed from one cell to another? What happens when we have dermal pigment? Do you really understand that and explain that to your client? So just score yourself on that. And then your home care. How good are you at that? Does every client go home with a prescription? Because if they're not, you don't even make the chart there. You're a 0. Because every client needs to have a home prescription to be able to actually get to the end point of where they want to be. And then handling objections. So if someone says to you, I'll think about it. That's one of the biggest answers we get. I'll think about it. How do you handle that? So I've got scripts for that. That's coming up. But I want you to be honest with this because I think if you share this to your business development managers or your people that come around to help you, if you share this with them and show them this, they could help you get there. But if we don't have a starting point, then we don't know how to help. So please take a photo, be honest, answer those questions. Yeah. So remember, we are not selling treatments. We're solving skin problems. That's what we do. Okay, Frank, and to the next one. And then next week, we're handling objections, why clients don't buy from you, and we're going to go through how you can increase your home care. And that was our little presentation.
Thank you very much. That was fantastic. Is there any questions anyone would like to ask? I know I've got a few, but if you have some questions, please unmute yourself and go ahead and speak. Well then, Gay, I'd like to put forward a question that was asked this morning, and I thought it was really good. Regarding some people think that by advertising that the consultation is free or redeemable on products or treatments, that's a great thing to do. What's your opinion on that?
Look, I really think that we need to be charging. Everyone needs to charge for the consultation. And I think I'm so passionate about the consultation because that's our process. That's the beginning to an end, really. And I think if we give it away freely, people don't take you seriously. When people pay for something, they listen to you, they take you seriously. So if you give it freely, and they don't see you as being, I guess, a professional person, they don't see you as being knowledgeable. You might come across that, but they're not going to take you for real until you actually start to charge them. So, like we talked about pricing this morning, and that's a really difficult question to answer because everyone has different hourly rates. But you've got to allocate, if you're doing a pre-consultation form that's emailed out, if you're sending that out, and you review that, that's 10 minutes. and then you call them again before they come in. There's, a couple of, after that pre-consultation, you make another contact with them, and that's another 5 minutes. And then you do maybe 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes in the clinic. So you've got to always charge for 45 minutes of your time for that consultation. And I really hope that you don't make it redeemable, because that negates everything. Hey, I'll do this for you, but I'll give you this, this, and this to compensate. And I know a lot of clinics work that way, and they feel that they can't, they can't keep their client if they don't do that. And I'm really sorry, but if you feel that you can't charge for the consultation or you have to make it redeemable, then maybe you don't really know your stuff that well. Because if you educate your clients, you give them everything, you give them your all at that time, they happily will pay. It's how you treat yourself and how you believe in yourself. I think it's really important.
Yeah, it does filter out in case clients say, oh, well, I can get it for free up the road or something. It filters out the clients who are not going to be serious with the plan that you were talking about, the treatment plan, the home care. And yeah, and I totally agree. It's if I go and see a doctor who will prescribe some medication, he's not going to make his consultation free.
No,
Never, ever I have.
yeah.
And I'm paying for his knowledge, his expertise, his studies, his years and years of studies, right there and then. To come up with a diagnosis and to tell me and explain what's going on. I think that beauty therapists are skin experts, health experts, nutritional experts in some way, and they should value that. I totally agree.
I agree, Frank. I wish every single therapist would get up on a pedestal and shout out how amazing that they are. Because
Yeah,
look how many people that you help. Look how many
yeah,
people you help in your life. So the thing is that we give so much and people stop believing in themselves. They doubt themselves.
yeah,
Like I think we spend a lot of time educating yourself. Look at all these lovely ladies today, like spending an afternoon listening to us.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
educating them. They want to do the best for their clients. You need to tell yourself you're amazing. You are so amazing.